just before the Iranian Revolution in 1979, my father moved to the United States from Shiraz to attend college. He married my mother, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed beauty from Odessa, Texas, and they had me shortly thereafter. They divorced, and years later, at the age of 15, my mother became mentally unstable, and I chose to live with my father. My dad was thrilled when I moved in because we'd really get to spend time together. We soon learned that was easier said than done. I was a decidedly American kid who read Nancy Drew and ate fruit roll-ups, and my dad was a scary, hairy Iranian who thought I should learn Farsi and take lamb for lunch. We just didn't get each other. This lack of cultural understanding continued into my late teens when I was thinking of becoming a theater artist. Alia Baba, why you not become a different kind of artist like a doctor or a lawyer? He'd plead. My dad wore all black to my high school graduation party. I'd announced I would be accepting a college scholarship to study theater, and he was in mourning. Now, my future would consist of little money, a beat-up car, and zero career stability. The hippie life. I was excited when, in 2011, I'd get to travel to Iran to explore the thriving art scene. I was to stay for 6 weeks with my dad and our family in his hometown of Shiraz. I had no idea what I was getting into. One of my first evenings, I received a call from C, a family friend who lived in the apartment above us, asking if I wanted to go to a wedding in 30 minutes. Luckily, I'm familiar with quick changes. When we arrived, it was like I stepped outside of Iran and into one of Gatsby's parties. Women's hair flowed freely, and jackets did not cover their dresses. Everyone was decked out and shiny, and the alcohol circulated illegally. The air smelled like freedom. C led me onto the dance floor, and together we shook our hips and moved our wrists in the classic Persian way. And later, I showed him how to shake it like a Polaroid picture with the crowd cheering us on. It was a singularly amazing night. When I woke later that morning, nursing a hangover, my dad was waiting at the breakfast table with a cup of tea. He wanted to know if I'd had fun last night. Then he asked if I decided to marry an Iranian man. I suddenly noticed that all of my family was within earshot, pretending to busy themselves with housework. "We will find you a good, loyal man," he said. "Not like those Americans who don't eat enough lamb." I thought my dad was mostly kidding. My dad would say, "Oh, I need to go to the store, Alia. Come with me?" "Sure, Dad." "Oh, actually, I don't need to go, but C does. You should both go." C and I went out to fetch bread, cheese, and even illegal alcohol for the family parties. C quickly embraced his role as a suitor. He begged me to teach him to make margaritas. He showed me how gold is melted into bricks. He surprised me with a teapot because he knew I loved them. I sort of began to like C. He was social and smart and seemed to care about people and about me. We spent a lot of time with my family, and it was easy. It was because of him that I felt for the first time like I was a part of my family. As C did not speak much English and my Farsi was subpar, our communication included words from both languages coupled with lots of hand gestures. During one of those many garden parties, C asked me, "So, when you want to marry?" Later, after I traveled the world, I laughed. He looked confused. 3 weeks zoomed by, and for the first time, he asked my stepmother to be a translator. He began without her. "Alia, I love you. I want to marry." I was stunned. It was so fast. There had been no kiss, no hand-holding, nothing to even briefly indicate love. I expressed many concerns. He lived in Shiraz, I lived in Dallas. He didn't care about art, and I did. He wanted to make a lot of money and live in a big, shiny house, and I was content making next to nothing. Not to mention, I wanted to finish my last year of college. I liked this guy, but love, marriage, I came here for a cultural experience, not to get married. But I didn't say that. I said okay. I said I was open to it. I remember speaking those words coolly, but on the inside, I was a confused wreck. I'm not ready for marriage. That means settling down and children. Nobody back home will understand if I come home engaged to a man I just met in Iran. Yeah, maybe this isn't nuts. C is a nice, good-looking guy who cares for me and can keep up with my wild family. Marrying him is the chance to start a new life, one with security, and that is appealing. Things snowballed quickly. Within the week, C's family came downstairs and formally proposed to my father and me. My dad wanted me to bring C to the United States. My marrying an Iranian was a kind of insurance policy for him that I'd always maintain closeness to the family, and that his grandchildren would be steeped in Persian culture. "It's your choice, though, Baba," he said unconvincingly. The day before I was to return to the United States, C and I were at a party in my grandpa's orchard. There was a lot of whiskey. We went for a late-night swim in the pool after everyone was asleep. We floated on our backs and gazed up at the stars. The combination of the alcohol, my reluctance to leave this fantasy life in Iran, and the wild decision I'd made to get engaged to this boy floating next to me welled up into big, sloppy tears. I couldn't go through with this, but I didn't want to hurt anyone. "Why you cry, Alia June?" I felt terrible. I had not fallen in love with C, but with the magic of Iran and the warmth of my big Persian family. It wasn't fair to lead him on like this. C took my hand and held it tight in his. "You don't have to marry me," he said. "You can tell me now if you don't want, and you will only be my sister. No problem. You only must say, Alia." I was paralyzed with fear of being a colossal disappointment to my father. This engagement to C had turned into the cure for the disconnect plaguing my family and me. I couldn't face the possibility of losing that and feeling estranged once again. So I said nothing. I returned to my very different, very American life in which I was tied down to virtually nothing, and my future was broad and bright, and I found that I did not want to be married. I used the comforting distance that email provides to do the deed. A few days later, my dad called, saying that he had found the perfect lawyer to help us with all of the visa paperwork. I got so nervous that I almost dropped the phone. "Daddy, I can't," I said in a voice much smaller than my own. "I can't marry him. I don't love him." Silence. Thickest kind. The kind swelling with anger and disappointment. "What are you talking about?" he hissed. "You, oh, Alia, my God. You are selfish." Click. Time froze. Shame and guilt overwhelmed me, and hot tears poured down my face. I felt I had acted selfishly for not doing what pleased my father. But was it better to resign myself to marriage with a man I did not love? In Iran, I'd been blinded by the overwhelming support I received from my family. For the first time, my profound desire to be loved and affirmed by my dad had been satisfied. Now I was sure I'd lost him, and the only true family I had. He didn't speak to me for months. I felt helpless. I was afraid we would never speak again, and that the fragrant air of my grandpa's orchards would remain only a fond memory. Many months after that catastrophic conversation, I called my family to tell them I wanted to come to dinner. They agreed, and I found myself sitting alone with my father on his back porch. Grilling kebab scented the tension-filled air. "I'm sorry about what happened in Iran. I mean, how I handled things," I said. "I am sorry too," he sighed. "There was a lot of pressure. I'll always love you, Baba." He hugged me briefly, the only way he knows how. I'm sure that was not the first time my father told me he loved me, but it was the first time I really heard it, and certainly the first time he respected my standing up to him. Of course, the hallmark moment didn't last long, for he leaned in and said, "Alia Baba, just please, whatever you do, don't marry a hippie."